Hello, I'm Luke, and the question that I have for you today is why does gender equality matter? It seems to be a very hot topic at the moment, and it has been for as long as I can remember, dating back to the 1950s and even beyond that to the 1400s, I think, is when I saw the earliest time of change that was coming into play for the equality of men and women. So this idea where for so many years women have not been allowed to be seen within society as on equal footing as men, and it's a real shame. But at the same time, with this idea of gender equality comes the inequality between both sexes. So also where for men they've had to play very particular roles in order to function within society. Whereas we're now looking at a time where society's changing and our perceptions and our views are starting to shift, and there's different ideas around what men and women should and shouldn't be doing. Rather than talking about that though from the current topics that we have, I'm sure there's a million different conversations we can have around this topic, but what I'm looking at is why does it matter when it relates to our own spiritual journey? Why does it matter for us? Why should I personally care about gender equality? And most importantly, I think, why is this kind of happening now? Like, why is there such a movement? Is it just that we're around a time where we have access to a lot of technology and a lot of social media, and where we're more connected than we ever were before? Or is there something far deeper at play? To kick us off, I'm going to read a quote from Abdu'l-Baha from the Promulgation of Universal Peace, where I think he uses a fantastic analogy to sum up what the current situation is when we're looking at gender equality. Within this particular writings, we're looking at something, so this is from the Baha'i Faith, we're looking at something which is one of the key principles of the Baha'i Faith, which is the equality of men and women. So in the most current revelation, the idea of gender equality is hot on the topics of things that we need to change. So it's interesting, but I'm going to read this to you now to start us off. The world of humanity is possessed of two wings, the male and the female. So long as these two wings are not equivalent in strength, the bird will not fly. Until womankind reaches the same degree as man, until she enjoys the same arena of activity, extraordinary attainment of humanity will not be realized. Humanity cannot wing its way to heights of real attainment. When the two wings or parts become equivalent in strength, enjoying the same prerogatives, the flight of man will be exceedingly lofty and extraordinary. Therefore, woman must receive the same education as man, and all inequality be adjusted. As I said, I like this quote, and I specifically like the analogy that's used, and it's used throughout the whole faith, and there's a lot of people who are aware of this, and I think the reason I like it so much is it makes it quite tangible. So it makes this idea of gender inequality that's currently taking place, or the need for equality, to be quite tangible. So what am I talking about? This idea of a bird. Humanity is a bird, and the two wings are male and female. And I love this idea because what it says to us is that we need to come together. We need to work together in order to allow that bird to fly. So right now that bird's not getting very far in terms of what we're doing, because we've constantly been dominated by one wing versus the other. What it also says for me as an analogy is it says that we're not the same wing. We are equally our own wings. And I think that's really powerful, and I think we overlook that, especially when we're coming to just general topics in society where we start talking about, well, we have to allow women to be coming in and doing these man jobs, and man going, we don't want to start looking at how we move the balance from one way to another, and we necessarily, I don't think, are going to find much progression in making women do what men do, because that doesn't kind of make sense either. So to delve a little deeper, why does it matter spiritually? I kept reading through the different writings, and I came across a really great summary, I guess, which was written by John Esselman, who had written a book called Baha'u'llah in the New Era, and it was looking at this whole gender inequality that was taking place and why there was such a push for equality between men and women. And the interesting part, and I will paraphrase as I go through, the interesting part for this was we're looking at a time where previously we're in an old era. We're in an old era of male domination, this thing where men dominated over women by reason of force when it comes to body and mind. There was always this idea that we will go and we will fight and we will protect, and that was fine. Maybe that kind of worked for us for a long period of time, but we're now coming to a point where we have evolved enough as humans, individually, as society, that we can now appreciate that maybe that's no longer working. Now, I don't have to give too many explanations to make us all realize how that's not working in terms of the amount of war that is taking place across the world right now, the amount of rallies and uprisings, the amount of leaders and people in power who are being exposed, different men who have used this domination in their daily lives that is also being exposed through the power of social media. There's so many examples, which is turning not just to say that men are bad, but that men have cultivated, it's been cultivated in society to allow this domination for so long. But that's changing. And why is that changing? Well, they speak about in the writings, and specifically from Baha'u'llah, saying that we're now moving into a new age. We're moving into a new era where this force, this domination is no longer required. We don't need that in order to push our way through, the progression of mankind. It's no longer required. What we're doing is we're moving into a time where different qualities and qualities that are attached very strongly to the character of a woman, and things like mental alertness and intuition and different type of spiritual capacities like love and service are needed in this new era. So we're moving into a time where that doesn't mean that we're going to overthrow everything, but rather through introducing these more feminine elements, we're being able to pull things back up and find this balance. In so many ways, through doing this, and through removing this inequality, it's not just about making women the same as men in that they're going to take over what men have done, but rather that women are going to bring in these new elements and these new foundations for us so that we can find a space where, rather than being divided and saying man does this and woman does that, we rather are united in diversity. And I think that's really important, is trying to find, well, what is the purpose of this gender equality, and why does it matter? Because that's what the question is today. Why does it matter? Because we need to find a way for us to be united. And if we're seeking unity and we're seeking peace, how can we say all the things that are happening right now through the old age, through this age of domination and through fighting and through demanding these things is going to get us there? Fighting does not achieve peace. I mean, surely many of us can see logically in our mind that a fight does not equal peace. It doesn't happen that way. So there has to be a change in that. And a lot of the writings is saying that through this shift and through bringing women up and empowering them to be on the same platform, not to say that they are now taking over, but that we're on the same platform, that this would help to shift and change that influence. Another part to it is I wanted to look at, okay, so we're talking about why does gender equality matter, and we're now saying that spiritually it's required for a new age and it's required for the progression of mankind. In order for the bird of mankind to fly, we need us to be equal. Amazing. But what does that look like? Like, how is what we're doing right now the right way about it, or is there more to it? And I was thinking about this a little bit further, and I thought, you know what, to make a shift, to make gender equality really come into action. It's fantastic that we're out there and there's different types of movements and organizations and different things that are happening in society, but nothing will stick. You can't change the roof of a structure if the walls and the foundation are no longer stable. So I thought about it, and I thought there's three things that need to shift in here, and that's perception, that's language, and that's our structure itself. And if you go back over the evolution of Homo sapiens, you can kind of see that there's a period called the cognitive revolution where we created this idea of common myth. And common myth is how we then believed in mystical things and gods and so on. But through that, in the new age, in this new era, it's also how we form things like businesses and political structures and even human rights. It's intangible, but something in our brain, in our cognitive revolution, or evolution, I should say, over time, is we've created this ability to perceive these things as real. In so many ways, these structures of gender inequality we perceive to be real because we created it in our mind. So I almost thought, if we want to change the structure, the roof of the structure, which is society, then we need to first start at the foundation, because you need a strong foundation to set the walls, you need a strong wall to sit the roof on. So if we look at foundation as our perception, how we perceive things, the way that we use particular language, even down to if we were to talk about different type of roles in society, how I guarantee you as we run through different lists, we would place and set these pre-existing ideas of what man does and what woman does. Rather, by removing that, there will be some that will naturally stick, but it allows the opportunity for man and woman to do whatever is right for them as an individual, rather than fitting them into a box based on their gender. And so by shifting this perception, we have an opportunity internally to make that change first, because right now we can't change the roof if the foundation is crap. So the foundation gets changed by a shift in perception. We then need to relay our walls. What are our walls? For me, our walls are the way that we speak. It's our language. It's the way that we take these ideas in our mind and we translate that through communication to the people around us. And the power of word, which we've spoken about before, is so significant. So through shifting the power of word after changing the power of our mind, we then have an opportunity to shift the foundation and reset solid walls. Now what's left? Well, it's the changes that we're making in society. It's the roof. And what is that roof? It's the structure. It's the way that through thinking and speaking about something is how we kind of change and form culture. I mean, culture is changed, is created, I should say, through different types of ideologies, customs and behaviors and social behaviors. How do we change that? We have to change the way we think. So for me, why does gender equality matter? Well, gender equality matters because we need it to progress into this new age of mankind. We need it to be able to spiritually ascend ourselves, to be able to all move forward together towards this space of unity. But how do we do that? For me, we first need to change the foundation. We need to change the way we think. It has to start internally. We have to have inward change before we can create significant outward changes in society. And this, for me, really, with all this amazing work going on, has to happen at the same time. Because if we don't do this, then we won't see significant changes. We don't want to recreate something in an old structure. We want to create a new structure altogether. And in order to do that, we must start with ourselves internally first. But that's my thought. What does it mean to you? Why does gender equality matter? It's a really interesting topic and it brings up a range of different conversation. I know there's been a lot to talk about just in this one specific way of looking at it, but I'd really like you to have a think about it. Have a conversation with people around you. Don't get caught up on the logistics of it. Speak really personally around what your own spiritual journey is, and most importantly, share. Please comment, continue the conversation on, but have a think about it for yourself. Why does gender equality matter?